Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz, in which I conduct in-depth and revealing interviews of icons of the weddings and event industry. And this is all to provide education and inspiration for any entrepreneur, but particularly event industry professionals and consumers. And if you are new listening to the show, I want to greet you, really appreciate you joining our wonderful community. And if you've been listening for a while, I thank you so much for listening week after week. I get so many wonderful messages from people talking about how and where they're listening to the show. And so it really means a lot to me. And this is a very big week for me personally because I'm going to be interviewing in just a little while Sean DeFreitas, incredible event designer and planner out of Miami who really works all over the world. Also, David Adler, the founder and CEO of BizBash. We all know about that organization. Excited to see David. And then next week, going to be interviewing King Dahl, who is a friend and former head of events for all of MGM. He's got a really fascinating story. Also going to be interviewing Ali Barone of Ali Barone Events. So got a big week and a half here. Also going to be going to Podcast Movement in Florida. So very exciting month here. Last week, if you happen to miss it, it was Meryl Snow, part 2 of Snowstorm Solutions. I first interviewed Meryl and then released it July 1st and felt there was so much more to cover. So we did a dynamic part 2 that was released last week. She's very well known in the event wedding catering space, also a wonderful consultant, particularly with sales training, also a speaker and runs think tank workshops. So today's guest, I am just beside myself to announce, and that is Tim Chi, CEO of the combined WeddingWire and the Knot Empire, now called the Knot Worldwide. Having inspired and empowered more than 40 million couples to plan a wedding that's uniquely them, the Knot Worldwide provides leading wedding marketplaces, personalized wedding websites, planning tools, and registry services with its brands in 15 countries across North America, Europe, Latin America, and Asia. That's just so far. And the Knot Worldwide also includes lifestyle brands. And prior to that, Tim first co-founded Blackboard, an online education technology company, and pioneered many of Blackboard's product and strategic initiatives, helping the company to grow to over 600 employees and a valuation of over $750 million. He then, if that wasn't enough, co-founded WeddingWire. We all know about WeddingWire. And so Tim is such a humble guy. I was really fortunate to be able to interview him in person. We had such a conversation which you're about to hear. You want to meet just a dynamic entrepreneur who is really willing to be vulnerable and share. Well, you're about to hear Tim Chi, CEO of the Knot Worldwide. Tim, it is so good to have you on the show. Thank you for doing this.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and I had to get on a plane, fly overnight, so far to come see you, but you're worth it.
You might have had to raft here yesterday. Exactly. We had torrential downpours here in DC.
Yeah, really, right? Seriously. But I mean, I live here, right? I could have crawled here, but but still, I appreciate it. So, but I was thinking when I was researching your history, and especially your upbringing, when I was 12, I was frustrated, having fights about money especially with my father and my parents. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to start some kind of a business and make my own money. Yeah. And I started a lawn mowing business, and I really resonated when you said that you were 16, you started a car washing business. Yeah. And you designed a logo, you printed business cards, you canvassed the city. Where do you think for you that drive came from? Because obviously you have a drive.
It came from my parents. So my parents immigrated here in the 70s from Taiwan. Mm-hmm. My dad was an architect. My mom was a nutritionist, dietitian, and worked at a hospital. But ultimately, she transitioned into being a real estate agent. And they worked. The interesting thing is they worked together. They rented a little place and they worked together. So I grew up in a home of small business owners. And like every small business owner, they not only had to do architecture and sell homes, they had to do marketing, they had to do sales. I was the first one at 16 when Macs came out. I had to set up a network in their office so that they could do a network printer share. And I was using Apple Talk and all that. So
you did that for them?
I did that for them. So it was the lesson there was this is an all hands effort, right? That I experienced early on. They would pick me up from school in elementary school, and I would just sit at the office until they were done
so
with work.
So you overhear them and that kind of thing.
And, sort of really firsthand experience what it was like to be a small business owner.
When they came here and immigrated, did they know English?
A little bit, but they learned it mostly.
So they really had to start from scratch.
They did. Yes.
Because I'm also thinking, talking about your parents and witnessing this, just the entrepreneurship side of them, but also not so much the drive, but the courage, right? To be able to immigrate from a different culture, learn the language, learn a new culture, and start their own businesses.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's sort of the American dream, right? That's one of the great things about this country is the ability to be able to do that. And, today more than ever, access to capital and how easy it is to get a business up and running. When WeddingWire was started 15 years ago, we were buying servers, right? The cloud computing didn't really exist.
No, listen, I worked for IBM, and this is a big for the listeners. This is a pretty big conference room. The mainframe would be at least the size of this room, and now the phone
is more powerful than it, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Well, so you go through high school. I know that in college you got a BS degree in operations research and industrial engineering from Cornell, right? A master's in science from Tufts. What were you thinking? Even before you graduated, did you know that you wanted to eventually start your own business, not knowing what it is? Though?
I did not. No, I totally fell into this, and the quick version of the story goes something like this. It was the first day at freshman orientation. I met a bunch of guys in my dorm room, in the dorm hall. We ended up staying together for 4 years. And one of the guys in between our third and fourth year had an idea where he stayed the summer and he was just helping his faculty members just sort of to pay the bills.
Yeah.
He was building websites for his instructors. And at this time, too, importantly, a lot of universities, colleges, institutions have invested a lot of money in infrastructure and wiring up campuses. This was in the mid-90s, right? Mid to late 90s. Anyhow, when we got back, he was like, hey, I'm getting a lot of demand from instructors. Maybe we should build software that helps facilitate running these classes online.
Yeah.
And that was the beginnings of what ultimately became a company called Blackboard, one of the largest e-education providers.
And in the very, 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 very beginning, what was your role in it?
Coding. I was building the software. Yeah.
Yeah. You're saying you were a nerd? No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Definitely.
I didn't say that.
I'm a video gamer nerd. Yeah, for sure. No, I was coding I coded many of the first versions of the Blackboard system, and then sort of moved into product, more product development.
Were your parents around at this time to see what you had done with Blackboard?
They were. I'll share a really great story. One that, you have these moments in life when you really remember them, and they're sort of, I want to say life altering, but certainly course defining.
Yeah.
As an Asian American growing up, with parents emigrated, typically, success means you become a doctor, lawyer, engineer. It's like listen, those are your options.
Listen, right? I'm Jewish. It's the same thing in my culture. Yeah.
So imagine, right? I'm at a university. I'm studying. I'm, not the best student, but I'm getting by.
Yeah.
And then, there's a moment in time when we started this company, and we all sort of made a commitment to each other, like let's go do this company. So we all had to call our parents, and we had to say, all right, we're not going to become doctor, lawyers, or engineers. We're going to do a startup with the freshmen that
right.
dorm mate. And I'll never forget this moment because I called my parents, and on-campus interviews are going on, and you're supposed to do the whole song and dance.
Yeah.
And I just said, Mom, Dad, I want to do this company, and kind of brace yourself, right? Like, here it comes.
Yeah.
And they said, we think it's a good idea. And I was like really floored.
Wow.
And the reason is they said, now's a time in your life when you can take that risk, right? Yeah. Where you're not saddled with a home mortgage and kids and all this. Like, it gets harder later in life to become a small business or to be an entrepreneur. Now's a good time, and and you can bounce back from it. And so that's how we sort of launched into.
God, that's fantastic to also have their support. I know that's really important.
Really, really important.
Yeah. And in terms of staying with Blackboard for a minute, were you involved in the hiring and managing of the employees? Because I know that's really important to you now. We'll get to that later. Was that part of your role as well as coding back then?
Not too much, but more so I was part of the founding team, and we built a large company. And so what I learned and experienced through that was how important culture, leadership, management, like all of the stuff that you need to drive, to attract and retain talent. It was so clear starting from day one to day, after we took the company public, how important having great talent, access to great talent, retaining great talent, and how important it was to, have good people around.
Well, what is your philosophy overall about company culture?
To me, it's actually pretty organic in terms of the way we think about culture here. So at the very, very basic level, culture is just defined by the people, right, that you bring on. And I feel like it's the company's responsibility to acknowledge that and to understand what your team values and then be able to reflect and support that. So we do a lot of surveying and just talking with folks about what our culture should mean. At the highest level, though, flipping that sort of bottoms up, at the highest level, there are things that are clearly very, very important to the generation we live in right now, that we have, as well as the times we're living in. I'll give you one example. It's very clear at the Knot Worldwide today, as we look across, that one common thread around cultural values, or values, I would say, core values, is this notion of giving back to the community, giving back in service, and not necessarily just opening your money and writing a check, but actually investing time and resources to support the community around us that support, whether it's in Delhi or our office in Delhi or Bangalore, New York, or Austin, Omaha. We take it very seriously that we contribute back as a company to the community.
So the employees are literally volunteering time?
They are. We're sponsoring programs all the time. We have we call it Global Donate. There's 1 day of service every year. We shut down the entire company. All 1,500 people are out somewhere working for an organization in their local community. It just happened a couple months ago. It's a really, really special day.
Well, and I know that, and the Dalai Lama, the Buddha, everyone talks about giving, not that you give in order to get back.
That's right.
But it really, the universe provides, when you give like that.
Yeah. And I think it's just good for the soul, right? I think we all want to feel more connected to other people, but also the communities that support us.
Well, and I'm thinking also you're bringing out even more of the humanness into your company way.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So I love, and you've told the story many, many times, so I won't have you go through it again, but how, in terms of starting WeddingWire as a groom, you had difficulty executing on wedding plans, and there were magazines that educated and inspired, but none that made it easier to execute sales, orders and arrangements online. And as a technologist, you couldn't find an online resource that would help you plan more efficiently. So you decided you would do it. Do you remember the moment, like when that light bulb went off in you?
Yes.
What was that like?
It was the summer of 2005. I was getting married in August. It was about July. I remember it very specifically. And that particular summer, you know how people, when they get married, their friends and people similarly aged tend to get married. My wedding would have been number 8 of that summer.
Right. So
I was like 7 in already. Yeah. And I had talked to friends, and it was my sisters right before, and everybody kind of expressed the same frustration and feelings that I was going through sort of at the tail end. And I remember it was at my sister's wedding in a hotel room. I woke up in the middle of the night, and my wife remembers this very well. And I was like, someone's got to do something about this. Like I just went through 7 of these, and everybody said the same thing, including ourselves. We feel like there's got to be a better way here to really help on the execution phase of the wedding. And that was the moment.
Well, and I'm not clear about the trajectory of the timing. You had already exited with Blackboard?
I did, yes. Yeah. I was right about exiting at that moment.
Did you have any thoughts at that time of what else you would do with your life?
Yeah, I was searching. at that time too. Right. So thinking about weddings was one of them. I had a bunch of other ideas that would have never worked now in retrospect. But yeah, it was the sort of perfect storm of, transitioning out of Blackboard, but also being engaged and going through that process, sort of running in parallel.
Oh, so that to me sets it even more so, waking up in the middle of the night and saying, I got it.
Yeah.
So what was your next step, generally speaking? What do you do? I mean, first of all, there's the courage.
Yeah.
And maybe obviously from your experience with Blackboard, perhaps it wasn't such an issue of courage or not, because you had done it you learned a ton from it.
That's right.
But still, what was the next step? How did you look at starting this?
So first on the courage part, I always like to say, I think everybody has great ideas. I mean, they just do, right? We experience our lives every day, and we're like, why didn't someone just fix that? Or, I mean, there are a lot of good ideas.
Yeah.
What separates, I think, what makes an entrepreneur is just simply the courage to go do something about it. That's really it.
That's
right?
a really good point. The courage to do it, to act on it.
Because we think about them all the time.
Yeah.
Every single day, people are thinking of ways to improve their own lives or solve pain points, and it's just the willingness to do it. I think that's what makes an entrepreneur an entrepreneur.
But do you feel any fear at all in terms of, like, again, obviously with the success you had with Blackboard, still though, I mean, we all know, like you said, you had other ideas that probably wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you look at that aspect of it? Like, okay, I'm going to dedicate now a lot of time and effort, and funds perhaps, or to raise it, whatever, to do this new idea. Did you just say, I'm just going to go for it? I did. Jump off the high dive. You almost have to see the world with a little bit of rose-colored glasses as entrepreneurs. I find most of us do. Yeah,
right?
I would agree.
It's just, you kind of need to believe. You got to have reasons to believe. And so that's what fuels the courage. But my first step to answer your question was great ideas don't mean good businesses, right? So we needed to actually understand whether or not the business opportunity actually was there, which really meant understanding the underpinnings of the dynamics of how the wedding marketplace and the wedding industry works, connecting with those pain points, but then also understanding there's a business opportunity here as well. And so it was a lot of research.
It's interesting, Tim. I know, speaking for myself and also a lot of friends, I think a lot of us tend to get a great idea and I'll speak for myself. I will believe so much in it that initially, and of course I've learned now the hard way, that I just assume that the consumer, whatever market, is going to feel the same as I.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And so it's a whole nother thing to then really get out there and do the research.
That's to validate. Yeah. I was walking around talking with wedding pros, asking them about their experiences, talking with engaged couples. I mean, it was really, the engaged couple side I deeply connected with, having just been through it. So that was a little easier. But the wedding pro side, the difficulties of being a small business, understanding where pain points were, that was a real learning moment for myself. And
that's right, because you're thinking as a consumer, you didn't really know anything yet from the business side.
Right. I visited a lot of wedding pros in the DC metro area and chatted with them and what was working, what was not, and whether they were happy with their success, as a standalone business where they thought opportunity was, and really understanding both sides of the market.
Well, moving forward a little into the story, how did you get the idea to crowdsource reviews of current wedding industry vendors by city? I mean, because that's right heavily what WeddingWire has been based on.
Absolutely. So timing, the other thing, right, with businesses we all know now that have done them, is timing plays an important role always in the outcome of businesses. Remember the Apple Newton, which was effectively right. It was trying to be an iPad or smartphone just way before its time. Many years too early. So timing plays an important role. So to answer your question, what was going on in digital, sort of online at that moment, is you saw the rise of TripAdvisor, you saw the rise of Yelp, you saw the rise of a lot of what we call vertical marketplaces that were differentiating themselves from the Google, Yahoo, Bings of the world, right? Where they were really horizontal search platforms. They were going really deep, Zillow, right, in a vertical, and really addressing consumer pain points in a very meaningful way and connecting them with the businesses that power that industry. And I was like, well, that makes sense. Like I can go on Yelp and figure out tonight whether I want to dine at place A or B, and then write a review about it and share my sentiment. Yeah. But I can't I can't read about great experiences that I've had with the 3 photographers that I was considering. Like, why? That doesn't make sense, because my life doesn't change that much if I have a bad dinner down the street. Yeah. But it certainly matters a lot.
So that must have been like another light bulb going off. Like, wait a minute, look at the opportunity here. That's
exactly right. Yeah. And so, said another way, we could see, or we were willing to be courageous and take the bet that business reputation was moving online, right? And it was very, very important that people started to see that and really build their persona and what they stand for online, and do it not just because they're saying it, but their customer base is saying it. And that's the essence of user-generated reviews, right?
That's right. Yeah, and you know, I got an entertainment company, so I understand from it. It really was an interesting concept, and I love how that goes. You know, also connected to all of this, you were saying the heart manifests in passion. I read that somewhere. Yeah. You said that, and smarts are not so important. Guts and instinct are really super important, and luck. Although I would say, is it really luck? You know, maybe you're creating the opportunity for that to occur, and then to see it. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But can you say more about that? I mean, you know, as you're going through this whole process, you're now into starting your second company. You've got really big dreams and goals for it. Sure. Is the passion behind it?
Yes. Yeah. I would characterize it this way. The CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, said, "I'd rather be a learn-it-all than a know-it-all." And when you look back at the WeddingWire experience and really where we are right now with the Knot Worldwide, importantly, it's always a learning opportunity. And that is, speaking of gut and passion, you know, obviously we're passionate about the industry. Mm-hmm. We're much more passionate about the opportunity to create and innovate and do things by learning, right? Uh-huh. It's not like anyone has the answers to everything right nowadays. Yeah. And that's the great part of entrepreneurship, is you sort of connect with something deeply, whether it's pain points, you feel like you have an answer to it, but then you're just willing to fail, learn, until you find the right answer. And that's what makes it really fun.
Do you feel you've had a lot of failures along the way?
Oh, ton. A ton. Yes, certainly.
Any really
too many.
What is maybe a big one or two that really, you know, strikes you with your memory?
I'll give you an example. The principle that I try to live by now around failure, managing failure, and how it impacts me as a leader. There's a natural inclination to want, as a person, I think, to understand your strengths and your weaknesses, or your spikes and your development opportunities, however you want to characterize them. And for me, I spend a lot of time, and this is one of my failures, trying to identify my weaknesses and development opportunities and fix them. I want to be better, right? I think it's normal.
Yeah.
Someone then came through and told me, they're like, "Tim, on your best day, you'll be mediocre at the stuff you're not good at." Right?
Okay, wait a minute. Your best, I got to think about for this.
On your best day, you can work as hard as you can to make your weaknesses better. Okay. But on your best day, you're still going to be kind of not great at the things you're not great at. Right? Just, you don't find a lot of people that are great at everything. The learning was double down on your strengths. What are you really good at? And then find resources, partners, friends, opportunity to complement your weaknesses and your development opportunities, right? And that, I took that really to heart, because I spent so much time talking about failures as a leader and a manager, trying to always course correct and make myself better holistically. Instead, today, we just have this super talented team. I just really focus on, and we try to focus on, what are the strengths? And then we have other folks that do all of the other things. So, that's just a general broad learning around, you know, spending time trying to course correct for something that has a better.
But that's huge. I mean, again, I can only speak from my own experience of like the managing I've done of a lot of people with the company I've had for a long time, getting frustrated, you know, identifying weaknesses. I mean, of course, myself too, but I'm talking about in the organization, and trying to, like you say, kind of course correct, fix it, right? Yeah. And how frustrating, and also for the people themselves, it's frustrating, you know, to be doing that, you know, and you know, back in the day, people would think I was kind of micromanaging, and that's what I was doing. Then it is almost like a light bulb going off, isn't it easier?
It's much easier.
Why not focus on what they and myself are good at?
Yeah, that's right.
Period.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So that to me was a great light bulb moment, as you like to say, and something that you know, I've taken to heart. And you know, I spend a lot of time, speaking of failures, trying to fix a lot of these things. And now, you know, we just make sure that we have the best people that are good at what they do in all the right slots.
Do you also try to message that to your people as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's one of the core sort of learnings here, that, you know, in addition to sort of eternal learning and being a learn-it-all versus learn-it-all, really think about your strengths. You know, it doesn't mean you don't spend time trying to improve. That's not the takeaway here. But certainly, you know, you'll just never be as good as someone that enjoys that part of what it is. And so, you know.
So what do you feel at this point are some of your major strengths as a leader?
You know, I really enjoy building authentic relationships. That's what I really love doing. And I feel like at a company right now, in any company, great companies are ultimately made by great people, but great people need to have great relationships and authentic relationships with each other in order to make it go. So, we've all experienced disorganized, sort of, more difficult places to work, and no one really likes those.
Yeah,
so we focus
lacking
on team spirit and everyone for themselves, etc. So what I try to enforce here and not enforce, but encourage, but also just in myself, is really connecting and building real relationships. There's thousands of, we have more than 1,500 employees, the number of relationships and touch points that happen every single day.
Yeah.
And then you expand that to our customer base and our business partners. There's hundreds of thousands of touches and relationships that happen on a monthly basis. So, and every one of those interactions matter, right? And so that is one of the things that I spend a lot of time thinking about here. And I think that's a core competency and strength that the Knot Worldwide.
But if I can ask, how do you manifest it? I mean, I love the idea of
model it.
Actually.
Yeah, you model it, right? You do it in everything that you do it in every interaction you have. One of the things that I like to do with my meetings, whenever I'm in a meeting or I'm running a meeting or a one-on-one check-in, if you're just checking in with one of your employees, and I learned this, I did not make this up, so I'll take no credit for this. This came from Brad Smith, the former CEO of Intuit. But he said, start with what they call the trip report. It's just like, what did you do this weekend?
Oh.
How was it? Right? Like,
and take it outside of work, in a sense.
And just chat.
Yeah.
And, build a relationship, because that's what matters at the end of the day.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, I love that you're saying modeling it, because I think this is a struggle for leaders. And in terms of the small businesses in the wedding industry, we're all so busy, and we're all so stretched thin, and just trying to get it all done. And got to take the time, right, to connect with your people and yourself,
and yourself and your customers as well, right? So, Maya Angelou once said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
So really think about that in every interaction you have with the people that work with you, for you, or if you report to them, your customers, the folks that support you, right? Just that's what authentic relationship means to me.
Yeah. No, I love that. That is really something that drives me a lot. And it's very moving to think of. Yeah. And again, I love how you're talking about incorporating it into business life, not just because I think when I first heard that quote some time ago, first thing I thought was in my personal life.
Personal life, yeah.
First thing. But then it's like, wait a minute, I'm spending most of my time, technically, right? In the companies and with the people I'm dealing with, clients and all of that. And things for me changed immediately.
Yeah.
To connect like that.
There was a saying too it was your title in the business context. Your title makes you a manager. The people that work for you determine whether you're a leader.
Ooh.
Right?
So
your title sort of just gives you the authority to be a manager, but it doesn't give you the authority to be a leader, so to speak, right? That's a vote up.
Yes.
And a vote of confidence from the folks that you work with. And so getting back to that sentiment, these relationships matter.
Well, and connected to that, I also read somewhere you were talking about, the secret to hiring well is looking for really talented people and good leaders, right? Not just screening for job specific functions.
That's right.
And how you also said, I like to think if I were on a 4-week layover or 4-hour layover, would I want to talk with him?
Yeah, exactly. That gets to the essence of it, right? Everyone is interesting in some way, shape, or form. And, we always just encourage folks to engage, share fun facts, learn about each other, because that's what makes being in business more than half the fun.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're setting the corporate culture. Is it true that you spend 50 to 75% of your time on matters relating to employees?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It just seems so high to me. It's wonderful, but it seems high. That's, again, the premise and the principle that we run here is people are what make companies go. Yeah. Right. That is our number one asset at the end of the day, is the people that show up every day, that are dedicated, loyal, smart, intelligent, all of the above, that are going to drive the business forward. And you just got to invest in your people. Yeah. So I want to come back. So in terms of the trajectory of the career, so you closed on a nearly $1 billion deal. Yep. I don't know if you realize that. Yeah. All right. Yeah, it was fairly big. I did. Okay, good. And to acquire XO Group, parent company of the Knot, New York-based XO Group, how did the idea to do this come about?
Well, so the merger, so it was a merger of
Yeah.
the two companies that came together, right? And the former CEO of Exo Group, Mike Stipe, and I were friends. We knew each other for the past 4 years. And we built a really strong relationship over time, and ultimately the idea of bringing the companies together was actually a pretty natural one at some point, right? More resources, more ability to innovate, more opportunity to serve our engaged couples, to serve the wedding pros. I mean, that's all the industrial logic behind why it would make sense.
Yeah, but what do you want to accomplish, because it's still fairly new, with this expansion?
I mean, most importantly, we
big
want.
Question,
Well, yeah, no. I mean, we want to. With the core thesis, right, is pooling resources together so we can drive innovation, both for our engaged couples and all the wedding pros that support us. And now we have a stronger platform to do it globally. So, the Knot Worldwide today service. We operate in 15 countries now today, and at the end of the day, there's a $400 billion plus annually global wedding industry. There's 40 million weddings that happen on Earth every single year.
It's amazing.
There's millions.
Yeah, if people think they're slowing down, I mean, come on.
There's a lot. But our presence is only in a fraction of the world right now, right? 15 countries out of hundreds. And at the core of it, planning a wedding is very similar in most cultures, right? Not in terms of how they look and the uniqueness. It couldn't be more different. If you think about India to Spain, to the US, there's many cultural, religious, they're very diverse. But when you boil it down to, I need a place, I need food, I need entertainment, I need a way to talk to my guests, all of that is the same, and that's really the core competency.
It's like
that
Maslow's
we bring to the table.
basic needs, right?
Basic needs, right? Yeah, exactly.
For a wedding.
For a wedding. So so that's what we spend a lot of time thinking about here.
Well, and I think I believe I read somewhere that I think the numbers are something like almost 50% are using the Knot WeddingWire, the Knot Worldwide.
The Knot Worldwide, yeah. So in the United States, we'd like to think that we find every engaged couple, but certainly in Europe, Latin America, we have really, really great strong brands like Bodas and Matrimonio.com and Bodas.com and Amex in Mexico. India is a brand new country for us. It's about a year and a half old right now. We're super excited about the Indian wedding marketplace as well. So just a lot of opportunity for us ahead.
But what about China too? It seems to me, I know a few years ago that was looked at as being an enormous emerging market for weddings. Where is it now?
It is an enormous, market for weddings. It certainly is. There's some really, really robust wedding marketplaces that are forming in China right now.
People have money now more and more.
People have money. The culturally, things are westernizing a bit. So yeah, it's definitely a big opportunity. I think we have our hands full this year and next year with India for sure.
Think so?
So 10 million, just was 40 million weddings that happen on Earth every year. 10 million of those, 25% happen in India.
Oh my God.
And another 10 happen in China, right? So 50% of the world's weddings happen in those two
for
countries.
A little while.
We'll be busy. We'll be busy.
That's incredible. Also, on another aspect of all of this, have you had mentors? What do you think about mentors?
I think they're terrific. One of the things that gives me energy and helps sort of drive me is the idea that I had so much good advice given to me.
Yeah.
And I love paying it forward now to new entrepreneurs going on, because without all of the wisdom that was dropped by many, many folks, it really helped shape who I am as a leader. And I really feel a strong sense of responsibility and a desire to want to pay it forward as well. And I love spending time with entrepreneurs that are just getting started in our ecosystem as well, right? With all of the pros who are all entrepreneurs, because it's a fun, exciting time. And quite frankly, I learn a lot too. I learn a lot from every exchange that I'm able to have with an entrepreneur.
Well, I think it's also natural for a lot of people to think, I got to figure this out by myself, and there's a vulnerability to asking for help, which I haven't had since about the age of 18. It's like, Andy, enough already, please. Can you find someone else?
Yeah, that's
But seriously, I agree with you. That's really been critical to my growth. Now, I could say I have maybe 2 mentors right now, always.
Yep.
What about in terms of working with partners? Whole nother aspect that's so critical, because I'm thinking about, again, you're talking about relationships, and developing them and maintaining them, how important authenticity is. What can you say about finding, checking out, researching, starting a business, which is like a marriage with partners?
With partners, it's to me, it's probably one of the most. It's probably the single most important thing that could be trajectory changing for a small business. Having the right partner. Yeah. Getting back to it, when I started WeddingWire, I have 3 other co-founders, right? Mm-hmm. Because guess what? I'm not good at what they do really, really well, and I just knew that. There was no way for me in my head to say, oh, I can do this all. Like I can be a good marketer and good at sales and build the product. And I just knew that wasn't a good recipe for success for myself. And I went out and I had very, very fortunate, found Sonny, Lee, and Jeff, who are still with us today. Yeah. And we were able to build WeddingWire, at least standalone. Do you have some kind of an agreement or understanding of what happens if and when you get into difficulty with each other? I don't think there's an agreement. I think it's just, trust takes time to build, right? And we've worked together for over a decade now. At this point, we can say anything to
right, I guess at this time.
But early on, it was earning trust, right? And every action that we were trying to do was trying to be respectful and sort of build trust over time. And what that unlocks is the ability to be candid and honest and respectful, and that exact tension you want around not everyone thinking about the same way.
It is a positive tension.
It's definitely a positive tension. Yeah. It's great, and it's respectful, and you just get to better answers when you can create that environment. But I will say, and I'll knock on this conference room table, I got very lucky along the way too. I have unbelievable partners that have supported me and are, did their part and much more than I did in order to drive the business. So.
I also want to talk about the digital world, the digital evolution in general, or revolution. I mean, and the speed, it's interesting. You're familiar with Ray Kurzweil's, his theory of singularity, right? The rate of change, getting faster and faster. Eventually it's going to be vertical. And, he's taking like 200 pills a day. He wants to stay alive for it, but I think he holds the most patents in America, I think, for any American. But what do you think about that, and how you're dealing with it? And I mean, I find for myself, at first I did not embrace it very well, but you got to. Mm-hmm. But it's almost overwhelming to keep up with it. And in your case, you're also setting trends.
That's right. Yeah.
So
how do we deal with just overall
the whole rate
innovation?
And how do you look at that? And
I mean, I think it's absolutely right. The pace is frenetic right now, and it only continues to accelerate one way. I remember when, in 2006 to 2008, when we were building WeddingWire as a startup, Twitter just came out and Facebook just opened up to be, and everyone was sort of wondering the same thing, like, what do I do with these, and how is it going to impact my business, and should I invest time? And now today, that's sort of more passé. It's Instagram, it's Pinterest, and it's like the new stuff is always happening, right? And it's only continuing one way as well. Yeah. We have machine learning coming in and artificial intelligence and, chatbots and all this stuff, right? It's not, there's no slowing down. Part of what we see our job here at the Knot Worldwide is actually to be a bit of a translator. We need to understand our market and help our wedding pros and ourselves figure out what's relevant and is going to be making a meaningful impact to all the wedding pros that work with us, right? And sort of be a filter and distill down. That's one of the reasons why we spend so much energy and a strong commitment to education, to learning, to knowledge sharing, to connecting, to forming a community of wedding pros as well, right? So people can learn from each other. It's like sort of in that, to get all in one together, we can arrive at the right answer for what does the next Instagram mean for us.
That's right.
And then, from a trend setting perspective, I think it's a lot just buried in data, right? We have, as a combined company, we have 40 years of data between the two companies, and data tells a lot nowadays. And so it's mining. Our team of data scientists, data engineers, analysts are looking through stuff and trying to understand what does this behavior in this app mean for connecting with a venue or photographer or DJ or signing up for a registry, et cetera. So there's a lot of insight within the data that helps us lift discover and identify trends that are relevant, again, to weddings.
And I imagine the most relevant thing right now is that coming back, because I would say it's coming back to authenticity again and connection.
It is. Yeah. We find right now that the highest level couples want to plan a wedding that's super personalized. It's uniquely their own, right? And our job as an industry, right, and not worldwide, and all of the wedding pros, is to help them realize that vision and make it unique and special and different and never been done before, because that means authenticity, and that means Instagrammable moments, and that means all of the things that people want nowadays.
Yeah, it's interesting how tradition forever, and I know in Indian culture it's still very important, but in American culture, that was so critical. There was always going to be a bouquet toss. There's always going to be cake cutting. There's always going to be certain, things. The way they did photographs used to be portrait. And now people want to be different, like you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
So what do you think is the next relevant thing that's coming down the pike based on your research and your work?
I think it's just a trend
of deeper dive into that.
Deeper personalization. Yeah, it's we are, on the knot.com, our newest campaign is around making tradition, right? So it's this concept that you're sort of doing it and making it uniquely your own
tradition.
Right, exactly, right? And I think you're just going to see more and more of that.
So also I want to dive into the millennial market, and buying habits have really changed.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like I know in music and entertainment,
big changes.
And we're all dealing with it. And in these interviews that I'm doing, I mean, these are like icons of the industry. Everybody, I'm finding that it's interesting to me. The ones who have been around for a while, the real veterans, they all say the same thing that, and they say it with a smile. Or at first, they're like very frustrating at first, how to figure this all out. And things are just changing so rapidly again with buying habits and the millennials. I hate to stereotype, but the millennials, and that they then realize they've got to embrace it, and so many are hiring much younger people to help tell them, right? And, from the street, how do you feel about it? How do you feel that these changing buying habits are affecting the industry, and what to do about them?
I mean, they just are. I think you adapt, right? I think you, like any business that wants to weather the ups and downs and the different changing cycles, seasons, trends, whatever you want to call them, the world continues to change, and adaptability and the willingness to change, right, I think is more and more important, particularly when you complement that with how fast things can move nowadays, right? What's hot one day can literally be passé 2 weeks later. And I just think it's imperative as a business owner that, you really embrace the learn it all notion, where you're open to change. You take time to understand what that means. And then you really try to figure out a way to apply it to your business. Because there's so much content being generated. There's so many signals nowadays, right? Yeah. Everything is tracked, good or bad.
I was going to say the metrics you must have. Yeah.
And so, those that adapt, survive, and they become stronger.
And just a little bit more, where do you see social media going?
Oh, wow.
Like earlier you said the next Instagram. Yeah. It's funny, Tim. Yeah. I was very slow to come around with Instagram, and I'm really starting to embrace it. I am studying it, and I keep thinking to myself, what do I do? Next thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's even crazier, right? Think about this. I'll get the dates wrong. We can check this later, but Instagram probably didn't exist.
It's a couple years
recent. Ago. Yeah, a couple years ago. It literally didn't exist.
And look what's happening now with stories. It's outdoing the grid and all of that.
So talk about rate of change. Will there be a next new thing? Absolutely, there will be, right? And whether it's social or some other form, I think it's really difficult I don't have a strong opinion one way or another, but rest assured, we like to say change is the only constant nowadays, right? So just be prepared for whatever it is and adapt quickly.
And where do you see the Knot Worldwide going? Just short term, the next 12 months, the next year. What are your plans? What do you want to do?
Oh, so we're really focused, obviously, on taking all of the resources that we have, talent, experience, data, and orienting it at the engaged couples, right? Today, engaged couples want a smart, digital, all-in-one, comprehensive wedding planner that's available on their phone, like wedding planning solution, all the tools and all that. They want it on their phone.
Yep.
And by delivering that, we give them the one-stop place to find every single service that they need. find all the registries they need, to find all the services they need. And it needs to be unique and personalized and fun and delightful and, all the things that
experience, right?
It is an experience, and you need to make that emotional connection, right? That is going to help them achieve a wedding that's uniquely their own. So that's that's definitely a ton of effort. On the equally as important, our business, the Knot Worldwide, is supported by the wedding pros, right? The community in our industry.
Yeah.
And we need to continue to focus on being a great channel, the best channel for delivering a return on investment for the dollars that people entrust us with to help them grow their business, right? Otherwise, our success at the end of the day of the Knot Worldwide is tied to the vendor, to the wedding pros themselves, right? And if they're not successful, then we won't be successful as a business. So on those two lenses is very clear, right? We need to continue to innovate on both and deliver that great experience for engaged couples.
Yes.
And drive success and help our business partners grow.
Yeah. Well, as a wedding pro, please keep doing it.
Yes. Well,
no, I love this. And I'm curious too about, you have so much responsibility on your shoulders. How are you balancing business life and personal? Because I know you have, don't you have 3 really young kids?
I have 4 kids.
You're up to 4 now?
I'm up to 4.
What are you, nuts? I mean, well, wait a minute.
No, it's the answer is on balance is you make balance. And I'll give you one very clear example. When we put those desks in my living room with Sonny, Lee, and Jeff almost, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
When I had no kids at the time. My wife and I were newly married. And she had seen, she had worked with entrepreneurs before and sort of saw my, how Blackboard went. And she said, Tim, let's make a commitment to each other. When we start a family, when that time comes, let's do family dinners together, right? Like be home for a family
That's important to me. I love that. Yeah.
And 14 years later,
still doing
unless
it.
I'm traveling, I'm home for dinner. I turn off my phone, basically. I mean, if people need to reach me, they know really how to reach me, but phones go down. And we just spend time as a family together from 7 until the kids go down. And then, my wife and I are back online. Sort of, dual screening, watching TV, answering emails, all that stuff till midnight, 1 a.m. in the morning.
But wait a minute. But what about you personally? What about your own balance?
So that is that's a struggle of mine. I'm the type of person that wants to take care of others first. That's sort of in my DNA. And sometimes that cost comes as a cost to myself. Very fortunately, I have the perfect counterbalance, which is my wife. Who forces me to make sure that I have time for myself, whether that's working out or playing video games. Like she is very disciplined and insistent that I need to take care of myself as well too. So that we found a really nice partnership in that respect.
Do you have a morning routine?
So I do. I get the kids up. I feed them
How
breakfast.
early? What time do you get up?
They get up at 7:30. My oldest get up at 7:30, so it's not too bad.
Late for us.
And then I walk them to the bus stop, and I drop them off, and then get them all school, and then my wife sort of takes care of the evening a little bit more. So we have a nice division of labor at home. But I just love the morning time. It's she gets to sleep in a little bit more and kind of have a little bit of a lazier morning, and I'm bustling about. But that's my time to kind of hang out with all the kids and enjoy them.
I think it was Allison Hutch, just Rinder Connect. I was interviewing her in Sausalito, and she was saying how her daughter, I forget how old her daughter is, very, very young. Maybe she's 5 or something. And she has a private patio in the backyard with this like old fashioned tub. And they basically have a bath together every morning and outside. And she says for her, it centers her. Yeah. It's so, you're touching me with the story of starting with the kids every morning.
Yeah. I enjoy it a lot, and that gives me a lot of energy and sets up my day as well. As frenetic as it can be sometimes and frantic, you're like, trying to get lunches in together, but there's always a moment, and many times it's on the walk to the bus stop when you get to hold a couple hands and walking down the neighborhood together and dropping them off and saying bye and the hugs and the kisses. Like I have that every morning.
My really daughter's older now, so I have other routine.
Well, my 10-year-old, sometimes as we get close to the bus stop, she slaps my hand away if her friends are going to be there. Don't embarrass me, Dad. So I'm just entering that phase now.
That's funny. That's a funny phase. All right. Well, last question.
Sure.
Big one. Big existential question.
Yeah.
How do you define success?
For me, success is, and this will probably come as no shock, is seeing my team members here be successful in their own right. And whether that's here at the Knot worldwide, or they move on to other careers and they take on more and more responsibility. I always say, of all the folks here, one day, if I do my job right, I'll be working for one of them.
That's
right.
Great.
And that to me is success, is just really building off those relationships and having true success come from lifting the whole team. That's what success is for me.
Well, thank you, Tim, for being so forthcoming. And I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
As well. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Tim Chi. Wasn't that incredible? Be sure to check out the site, which is the knotww.com. Again, the knotww.com. Be sure to check out the show notes for more information at our website of theweddingbiz.com. And if you enjoyed this, which I'm sure you did, please share it with your friends and colleagues. We would love to continue to grow our community. Such valuable information from Tim. So would love for you to share it, and also give a review wherever you get your podcast from. And if you could give us top ratings, that would be absolutely wonderful. Also, don't forget to listen to our follow-on segment, which comes out Wednesday, called The Next Level, in which I have a guest co-host, and wait till I tell you who that is for this one, but I have a guest co-host, and together we tease out some of the highlights of the interview of the week and break them down and deliver specific tactical tips and strategies to help raise your own business to the next level. And you ready for this? This week's guest co-host will be Tate Larson, co-founder of Style Me Pretty. No need to say more than that. So again, we really enjoy you listening. Appreciate all you new listeners and existing listeners. And the sponsor for today is Kushner Entertainment, who you can find at kushnerentertainment.com. And we'll catch you next week on The Wedding Biz.